SA Inc. remains optimistic. SACCI's Business Confidence Index has held steady at 114.7 points in March. The latest reading continues the upward trend that has been ongoing since November last year. The Chamber says the results indicate a business environment that remains stable to positive despite external factors and local economic challenges that may not be conducive to business operations. Manufacturing output has continued its upward trend. Production increased by 4.1% in February after the previous month's near 3% gain. That increase marks the fifth consecutive month of growth in activity and the strongest since June last year. FNB senior economist Tanda Sitole says the sector has shown remarkable resilience despite persistent challenges, and has added that the year-to-year expansion of 3.5% suggests that average annual growth will be sustained this year. Mining production surpassed expectations. Output for February came in nearly 10% higher, while the market had pegged in growth of 3.5%. That increase was supported by a market rise in iron ore production. Investec economist Lara Hodes says although improvements have been made in a number of areas, the sector continues to face key issues. These include significant water infrastructure challenges and the poor state of roads and railways, which continue to impede optimal activity and export potential. Sticking with the mining sector, Sibanye-Stillwater is embarking on another round of retrenchment talks in South Africa, and this relates to its gold mining operations. The move will impact the Beatrix 1 shaft as well as the Kloof 2 plant. Sibanye says this will potentially affect over 3,000 employees and 915 contractors. Earlier this year, Sibanye cut about 2,600 jobs at its Platinum Group metal operations in SA. Schroder European Real Estate Investment Trust says the value of its property portfolio fell 1% in the quarter to end March. The firm attributes the decline to outward yield movement, particularly for offices and select retail. Schroder added that rental income has remained stable with a continuing high level of rent collection and the portfolio benefiting from indexation and high occupancy of 96%. Looking ahead, the company has stated that it remains well positioned with significant cash reserves and is continuing to review select sustainability-led capex initiatives in the portfolio, which should optimize earnings growth and asset liquidity. The JSE's welcomed a new player. WeBuyCars has joined the local bourse following its unbundling from Transaction Capital. The company, which operates in the pre-owned vehicles market, launched back in 2021 and has a market capitalization of nearly 7 billion rand. WeBuyCars marks the JSE's second listing this year, bringing the total number of companies on the bourse to 283 with a market cap of 18.4 trillion rand. New World has posted lower half-year profit. The firm, which assembles and distributes branded consumer goods, says sales came under pressure locally, and it's pointed to TVs in particular, saying declining disposable income and load shedding reduced demand. The international operations, which span Australia, Brazil and the United Arab Emirates and Hong Kong, fared much better, but it was not enough to grow the bottom line. New World says the overall decline in sales, coupled with higher input costs, weighed on profitability. Headline earnings per share for the period came in 5% weaker. And looking further afield, German airline Lufthansa has extended flight cancellations from Frankfurt to Tehran amid security concerns. Here's more detail in this package report.
Lufthansa extended the cancellation of daily flights from Frankfurt to Tehran to April 13th on Thursday. It said the decision was made to avoid a situation where the airline's crew had to stay overnight in the Iranian capital. The German carrier suspended flights to Tehran due to the situation in the Middle East on Wednesday. The region is on alert for possible Iranian retaliation for a suspected Israeli airstrike on Iran's embassy in Syria. Lufthansa said it was constantly monitoring the situation in the Middle East and in close contact with authorities. The carrier also reached a key deal on Thursday after months of negotiations. It struck a wage agreement covering 19,000 flight attendants. The deal with cabin union UFO includes a 16.5% wage increase over 36 months. It will also add an inflation compensation payment of €3,000 or more than $3,200. Some 20,000 UFO staff at Lufthansa and subsidiary Cityline stopped work for a day last month. That caused around 1,000 flight cancellations, affecting 120,000 passengers.
Now, population estimates for Germany are forecasting only a slight increase in population by 2040, with large regional disparities. This is according to a study and data provided by the Bertelsmann Foundation. Here's our reporter Anati Ndevu with more.
Well, that's right, Zinati. Despite birth rates falling below replacement rates over the years in Europe, the German population is estimated to increase slightly by 2040. And here to provide further insights on the country's population growth is Chiponda Chimbelu, who is currently standing by in Berlin. Chiponda, thank you so much for your time. What are the demographic forecasts for Germany?
Thanks for having me. Well, 500,000 more people will be living in Germany by 2040. Now, that's according to a study by Bertelsmann Foundation. By the end of last year, there were 84.4 million people living in Germany. Now, that is, of course, the EU's most populous country. Despite the projected increase, the demographic development will vary significantly between regions. The population is set to decline significantly in most of the federal states in eastern Germany, while increasing rapidly in some parts of western Germany. Also, many people are expected to move to cities. Now, that is a trend that has already begun, and it is set to intensify over the coming years. But one of the most worrisome developments is that Germany's population will be much older. More than 1 in 4 people living here will be 64 or older by 2040.
Sounds like an uneven population growth there, Chiponda. Now, how will the aging population affect Germany's economy?
Well, Germany's birth rates have been below replacement rates since the 1970s. There are fewer workers entering the workforce than there are workers retiring. In 1962, there were 6 workers for every retiree. Today, there are around 2 workers for every retiree. And Germans are also living longer. That puts tremendous pressure on the country's pension system because pensioners are drawing from it for a longer time than decades ago. And that's not the only challenge. The fact that the population growth is uneven will put pressure on resources in the cities that expand. Already, Germany has a housing crisis in the leading urban areas. In Berlin, Hamburg, and Munich, it is extremely difficult to find an apartment. And of course, rents have also risen significantly. Other infrastructure will also be needed to support the growing population.
And with the recent Immigration Act, Chiponda, I'm wondering if that will be a solution for the economy. And what exactly is the government doing to prepare for the demographic shift?
Well, the government is trying to make it easier for skilled workers to move here. The Skilled Labor Immigration Act took effect last month. Foreigners from outside the EU can come directly to Germany and start working while their qualifications are accredited. They get the right to stay here for up to 3 years with their dependents, if they can support themselves. Immigration has been offsetting Germany's low birth rate since the 1970s, and while it may help, it is not a permanent solution. Also, it has become increasingly polarizing and divisive here in Europe. So it is very difficult for politicians to strike the right note when turning to migrants to fill the labor shortage. Germany is also trying to reform its pension system, but that is still in the early stages. Economists say more needs to be done to prepare the country for the aging population, including updating infrastructure and spurring innovation. German lawmakers will certainly have their work cut out over the coming years.
Well, let's leave it there for now. Thank you so much for your time, Chiponda. That was DW correspondent Chiponda Chimbelu.